All right, let's talk about bees and bananas. I know, it sounds a little weird, but we're about to dive into a really surprising connection between this everyday fruit and the health of honeybees. It's a wild story where old school beekeeping wisdom clashes head on with some really cool new science. And you know what? It might just change the game for beekeepers everywhere. So if you talk to a beekeeper, there's a good chance they'll tell you one thing: never, ever bring a banana near a beehive. For decades, the common wisdom, the legend really, is that the smell drives them crazy, makes them super aggressive and defensive. It's one of those rules of thumb that's been passed down for generations. But what if that's all wrong? Or at least not the whole story? What if that forbidden fruit, the one everyone's been so afraid of, could actually be a secret weapon to help bees thrive? Because some fascinating new research is flipping that old idea completely on its head, suggesting bananas could be lifesavers. Okay, so before we get to the cool new stuff, we really have to unpack this old fear. I mean, why bananas? What's the deal? Well, it all comes down to some pretty interesting bee chemistry. So the culprit here has a fancy name: isopentyl acetate. We'll just call it IPA. It's the chemical that makes a banana smell like, well, a banana. But here's the crazy part. For honeybees, that exact same chemical is a major part of their alarm signal. You know, when a bee stings, it releases the stuff to basically scream help, attack, to the rest of the hive. So you can see the logic, right? The fear was that a banana is like a false alarm that could send the whole colony into a defensive panic. And look, that fear isn't totally baseless from a chemical standpoint. But here's the thing. Bees are dealing with a much, much bigger threat than a stray banana peel. And that threat is starvation. With modern farming and less natural habitat, there are these long stretches of time, beekeepers call them dearth periods, where there's just not enough food out there. That's the real crisis that researchers are desperately trying to fix. And this is where our story really kicks off. A scientist named Katharina Davitt looked at this massive problem, and then she looked at this super common, cheap fruit, and she connected the dots in a really bold way. She basically asked, wait a minute, could this thing we've all been avoiding actually be part of the solution? Her whole goal was to find something natural, cheap, and easy for beekeepers to get their hands on to help their bees through those tough times. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. What's even in a banana that would make a bee happy? To figure that out, let's look at it like we're a honeybee staring at a menu.
Well, first off, you've got tons of good stuff. Bananas are loaded with the right kinds of sugars: sucrose, glucose, fructose, which is basically rocket fuel for bees. They've got important minerals like potassium. And get this, the peel, especially when it's getting all brown and spotty, is packed with compounds like dopamine and serotonin. Yeah, that dopamine and serotonin. Plus, a huge bonus, they don't have any of the weird sugars that can sometimes be toxic to bees.
Okay, but it's not a perfect food. There's a catch. Bananas are missing some really important stuff, like the amino acids and lipids that these normally get from pollen, and they're pretty low on certain key vitamins. So, and this is really important, you can't just feed bees bananas and call it a day. Think of it more like a powerful supplement, not a complete, balanced meal. All right, so we know what's in them. The theory looks good on paper. Now it was time to put it to the test. Let's see what happens when you actually give bananas to a real hive of bees. The setup for this experiment was so elegant and simple. They took two groups of bees. The first group, the control, got what beekeepers usually give them, just plain old sugar syrup. The second group got the same sugar syrup plus slices of overripe banana placed right inside the hive. Then they just sat back and watched for 30 days. So a month goes by. They collect all the data, crunch the numbers, and the results were pretty stunning. They flew right in the face of that old beekeeping wisdom. So, what do you think? Which hives came out on top? The ones with the banana boost, or the ones just chugging sugar water? Well, the data was crystal clear. They measured success by looking at brood. That's basically the bee nursery, all the eggs and baby bees. And the banana group had way more. We're talking almost a whole extra frame full of new bees compared to the syrup-only group. In the beekeeping world, that is a huge deal. Let's put a hard number on it. The hives getting bananas saw an 18.1% increase in brood production. That's a massive boost in population growth, and it shows that all those extra nutrients were going directly into raising the next generation. But here's a super interesting little twist. The control group, the one without bananas, actually got heavier. And you might think, wait, isn't that good? Well, what was happening was, because they weren't as busy raising babies, they just took all that sugar and packed it away as honey. The banana group, on the other hand, burned through its energy to make more bees. So one hive was saving for a rainy day, while the other was investing in its future. And when it comes to a strong colony, more bees is almost always the right answer. And this wasn't just a one-off thing that happened in Oregon. Nope, this study just confirmed what other scientists were seeing all across the globe. You look at research from Nigeria, Nepal, India, they all found the same thing. Giving bees bananas leads to more baby bees. This is a real, repeatable phenomenon. Okay, so this is all great for science, but what does it mean for you? For beekeepers on the ground, or even just someone who cares about bees? Let's translate this research into something you can actually use. The study gives us a pretty clear playbook. Step 1, you want the ugly bananas, the ones that are yellow with brown spots, because that's when those good amines are at their peak. Step 2, slice them up and put them right inside the hive, on top of the frames. That way you totally sidestep that whole alarm pheromone issue. And step 3, be smart about it. This is a special treat for when times are tough, like early spring to help the colony build up, or in the fall to get them ready for winter. And I gotta say it one more time because it's the most important part. Bananas are not a magic bullet. They are a supplement. The science is super clear on this. You use them with sugar syrup and pollen patties, not instead of them. You know, this whole story is just so cool. An everyday fruit, one that was literally feared by beekeepers for years, turns out to be this incredible tool. It really makes you wonder, right? What other simple, powerful, and natural answers to some of our biggest ecological challenges are just hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to take a second look?